my 16-year-old daughter, exposed the racist who tried to destroy my career. Never thought my dream job would become my worst nightmare in less than 72 hours. It started on a Tuesday morning when I walked into Lincoln High School as their first black vice principal, still riding the high of my promotion 3 months earlier. At 34, I had worked my way up from English teacher to department head to this position, and I was determined to make a real difference in educational equity. The irony is not lost on me now. My daughter Maya, 16 and brilliant, was a junior at the same school. She had been so proud when I got the promotion, bragging to her friends about how her mom was going to change things. That pride would soon turn to horror in ways I could never have imagined. The trouble began with what seemed like a simple administrative task. Principal Richardson had asked me to take over the school's social media presence as part of our new community outreach initiative. We were launching a comprehensive diversity awareness campaign, and he wanted fresh perspectives on how we engaged with students and parents online. I should have been more careful about the password situation, but honestly, in the chaos of transitioning into my new role, details like that seemed minor. The previous person managing our accounts had been Janet Morrison, our former guidance counselor who had applied for my position and been passed over. When I asked her for the login information, she seemed helpful enough. Janet was 58, had been at Lincoln for nearly 20 years, and had that practiced smile that never quite reached her eyes. During the interview process, she had made several comments about how the district was focusing too much on diversity initiatives and not enough on traditional academic excellence. I chalked it up to generational differences and the natural disappointment of not getting promoted. The first week of October, we launched our diversity awareness campaign with a series of posts celebrating different cultural contributions to our school community. The engagement was incredible. Students were sharing and commenting. Parents were expressing appreciation for our inclusive approach. I felt like we were really connecting with our community in meaningful ways. That's when the first strange post appeared. It was posted on our official Instagram account at 2:15 a.m. on a Wednesday, claiming that our diversity initiatives were just political correctness run amok and that we should focus on merit instead of skin color. The language was coded enough to seem like it might be a legitimate conservative viewpoint, but the timing was bizarre, and the tone felt off for our school's voice. I immediately deleted it and changed the password, figuring maybe we had been hacked. I reported it to our IT department and sent a message to our community explaining that unauthorized content had been posted and removed. Most people seemed understanding. These things happen in the digital age. But then it happened again the following week, this time on Facebook during lunch period. Another post questioning why we needed Black History Month when we don't have White History Month, using language that was just inflammatory enough to spark outrage but carefully worded to avoid obvious hate speech violations. The comments section exploded within hours. Parents were demanding explanations, students were screenshot and sharing, and the local news picked up the story by evening. My phone was buzzing non-stop with calls from angry community members, confused colleagues, and reporters wanting statements. I spent that entire evening doing damage control. Calling parents personally, explaining that this was clearly not official school policy, that we were investigating how these posts were appearing on our accounts. Principal Richardson was supportive but clearly stressed about the negative attention. Maya came home from school that day looking miserable. Kids were asking her why her mom was posting racist content online, whether she agreed with those views, whether our family really believed those things. Watching my daughter's face crumple as she told me about her day was the moment I realized this wasn't just about my career anymore. The third incident happened during our parent-teacher conference week. This time the post was more explicitly inflammatory, suggesting that diversity initiatives were discriminating against white students and that parents should demand equal representation in school leadership positions. It was posted from our Twitter account at 9:37 a.m. on a Thursday, right when I was scheduled to be meeting with parents. The backlash was swift and brutal. The story went viral on local social media, with parents sharing screenshots and demanding my resignation. The comments were filled with accusations that I was using my position to push a radical agenda, that I was unfit for educational leadership, that the district had made a mistake promoting someone with such divisive views. By Friday morning, there were protesters outside the school. Not many, maybe 15 or 20 people, but enough to create a scene that the news cameras loved. They carried signs demanding my resignation, calling for investigation into discriminatory practices, questioning whether I should be around children. Principal Richardson called me into his office that afternoon. His face was grave, and I could see the stress lines around his eyes that hadn't been there the week before. He said the district office was getting pressure to place me on administrative leave pending a full investigation. The school board was meeting in emergency session that weekend to discuss the situation. Parents were threatening to pull their children out of school, and some were talking about lawsuits. I tried to explain that I hadn't posted any of that content, that someone else had to have access to our accounts, that this felt like sabotage. but I could see in his eyes that the evidence looked damning, and the political pressure was overwhelming. That weekend was the longest of my life. Maya barely spoke to me, spending most of her time locked in her room. My husband Marcus tried to be supportive, but I could see the worry in his face. We had worked so hard to build our life here, to establish ourselves in this community, and it was all falling apart. Sunday evening, Principal Richardson called to tell me that the school board had voted to place me on paid administrative leave effective immediately while they conducted a thorough investigation. I was not to come to campus, not to contact staff or students, not to post anything on social media. The local newspaper ran a front-page story on Monday morning, with my photo and the headline questioning whether Lincoln High had made the right choice for vice principal. The article quoted anonymous sources within the district, expressing concerns about my fitness for the position and the negative impact on school culture. I felt completely helpless. Every attempt to defend myself just seemed to make things worse. When I tried to explain to reporters that I hadn't posted that content, it sounded like desperate deflection. When I pointed out the strange timing of the posts, it seemed like I was making excuses. The investigation dragged on for 2 weeks. District officials interviewed staff members, reviewed security footage from the school, examined our computer systems. But the posts had definitely come from our official accounts, and as the person responsible for managing those accounts, I was the obvious suspect. Maya was having a terrible time at school. Students were divided between those who supported her and those who believed the worst about our family. Her grades started slipping, and she began asking if we could transfer to a different district. That's when she came to me with an idea that changed everything. Maya had been talking to her computer science teacher, Mrs. Kim, about digital forensics for a class project. Mrs. Kim had mentioned that every digital action leaves traces, metadata that can reveal when and where something was created, even if it appears to have been posted at a different time. Maya asked if she could look at the posts that had caused so much trouble, not as my daughter but as a student investigating digital evidence for her computer science class. She wanted to examine the metadata, the source code, anything that might prove these posts hadn't come from where they appeared to come from. I was hesitant at first. This was my 16-year-old daughter, and I didn't want her getting more involved in this mess than she already was. But she pointed out that she and her classmates had grown up with technology in ways that many adults hadn't, and they might notice things that older investigators would miss. With Mrs. Kim's supervision, Maya and 3 of her classmates began what they called their digital detective work. They analyzed screenshots of the posts, examined the metadata available from our social media platforms, and started mapping out the timeline of when things had been posted versus when they had been created. What they found was remarkable. The posts had been created days or even weeks before they appeared online, but they had been scheduled for publication using a feature that most people didn't even know existed. The metadata showed that the original creation had happened from IP addresses that definitely weren't from the school or from my home, but more importantly, Maya's group discovered something that the official investigation had missed. Many of the posts included image files with embedded metadata that showed they had been created using software installed on specific computers. That software included digital watermarks that could be traced back to individual devices. When Maya showed me their findings, I felt hope for the first time in weeks, but I also realized we needed professional help to make sure this evidence would be taken seriously by adults who made decisions about my career. We contacted a digital forensics expert who specialized in social media investigations. Sarah Chen had worked on cases involving cyberbullying, identity theft, and corporate sabotage. When she reviewed Maya's preliminary findings, she agreed to take our case pro bono because she was impressed by the quality of the student investigation. Sarah's professional analysis confirmed what Maya's group had discovered and went much further. She was able to trace the posts back to their original source, a home computer registered to someone in our school district. She could prove that the posts had been created and scheduled during school hours when the account holder had called in sick. She could even show that some of the images used in the posts had been downloaded from that same computer weeks earlier. But the real bombshell came when Sarah started investigating the digital trail more broadly. She discovered that the same computer had been used to create fake social media accounts that had been posting negative comments about me and our diversity initiatives for months, creating an artificial impression of community opposition. Even more damaging, she found evidence of a private blog where someone had been documenting what they called evidence of reverse racism in the district. The blog included screenshots of social media posts, but the timestamp showed these screenshots had been created before the posts had actually been published, proving they were planned in advance. The blog also included detailed complaints about my promotion, arguments about why diversity initiatives were harmful to education, and strategies for undermining my credibility with parents and community members. It was basically a step-by-step plan for destroying my career. Sarah was able to connect all of this digital evidence back to a single IP address and computer, registered to Janet Morrison. When I saw Janet's name in that report, everything suddenly made sense. Her helpful attitude when I asked for the social media passwords, her carefully neutral responses during staff meetings about diversity initiatives, her availability to cover social media duties during the transition period when I was learning my new responsibilities. She had never really given up access to our accounts. She had just waited until I was officially responsible for them, then used them to destroy my reputation and career. Armed with Sarah's professional forensics report, we took our findings to Principal Richardson and the district administration. The evidence was overwhelming and undeniable. Janet had systematically sabotaged my career using sophisticated digital manipulation that had been planned for months. The district immediately suspended Janet pending their own investigation. Within 48 hours, they had confirmed Sarah's findings using their own IT security team. Janet's computer was seized, her access to all district systems was revoked, and she was escorted off school property. But what happened next was even more revealing. Once news of the investigation leaked, other staff members started coming forward with their own stories about Janet's behavior over the years. Teachers reported that she had made discriminatory comments about students and families, that she had actively undermined diversity initiatives, that she had created hostile environments for staff members of color. Students also began sharing their experiences. Several reported that Janet had discouraged them from applying to competitive colleges, telling them they wouldn't fit in or that they should consider more practical career paths. The pattern of discrimination was clear and went back years. The district's investigation expanded far beyond the social media incident. They discovered that Janet had violated multiple policies regarding professional conduct, non-discrimination, and technology use. Her behavior had created legal liability for the district that went far beyond the damage to my reputation. 3 weeks after the truth came out, I was fully reinstated as vice principal with a formal public apology from the school board. The district issued a comprehensive statement explaining that I had been the victim of a sophisticated digital sabotage campaign, that all inflammatory content had been posted without my knowledge or consent, and that they deeply regretted the harm caused to my reputation. Janet was terminated immediately and faced criminal charges for computer fraud and harassment. The district also implemented new cybersecurity protocols to prevent similar incidents in the future. But the most satisfying moment came when the district offered me the principal position at Jefferson High, their flagship school in the northern part of our district. It was a promotion that represented not just career advancement, but genuine recognition of my capabilities and commitment to educational equity. Maya's computer science class received recognition from the state education department for their innovative use of digital forensics techniques. Mrs. Kim integrated their investigation methods into her curriculum, and several universities reached out to offer scholarships for Maya's college applications. The community response was overwhelmingly positive once the truth came out. Parents who had been most critical apologized publicly. Students organized diversity appreciation events, and our social media accounts became models for inclusive community engagement. Looking back now, 6 months later, I realized this experience taught me important lessons about resilience, the power of truth, and the importance of not giving up when facing false accusations. But most importantly, it showed me that sometimes the best advocates are the people closest to you, even when they're 16 years old and more tech-savvy than the adults trying to solve the problem. Maya still teases me about not understanding metadata, but she also tells her friends that her mom is the principal who fought back against racism and won. And honestly, that makes everything we went through worth it. The irony is that Janet's attempt to destroy my career through fake diversity controversies actually led to stronger diversity initiatives throughout our district. The investigation revealed systemic problems that had been ignored for years, leading to policy changes, training programs, and accountability measures that will benefit students for years to come. Sometimes justice comes in unexpected forms, delivered by unexpected people using unexpected methods, but when it comes, it's worth the wait.